Sure, let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay, cool. Chip, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having.
Yeah, it's an honor. So let me ask you this first and foremost. In your line of work, living through a pandemic had to be a big deal. How many waves did that time period surviving it create that you still feel to this new year of 2025?
Well, I mean, it had a bigger effect on the work I was doing than it did on me, uh, because mostly I'm a writer, and so I spent a lot of time alone in my office, which is what a lot of people ended up doing, or at least spending time alone during the pandemic. So it affected our travel. I was just trying to get this project going where we're going to travel all seven continents, but never travel by jet. And COVID just obliterated that schedule because every ship in the world, and we were taking a lot of ships, they were just canceled.
Yeah.
And that has still remained a problem because a lot of those shipping companies have just stopped, or they've stopped some of the routes that we were planning to take. Like, for instance, we're just planning to go from the Emirates in Africa or Asia to India, and there's no ship that will get us there.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure that out.
Wow. So let me ask you this. Let's boil down exactly what you do on a daily basis here in 2025. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders, 10 or 11-year-olds. It's career day. One of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer him?
Okay, well, there's two answers to that question. When we're traveling on this journey that we're taking, then what we do every day is we show up in a different city, and we I usually will write in the morning so that I can stay on top of all the notes that I'm trying to keep and all the places that we're going and experiences we've had the day before. And then my wife and I hit the road, and it doesn't matter whether we're in Cairo or Crete or Lyon, France, or Patagonia or Antarctica. Those are all places we've been. And so we have to have this kind of routine. It took a while to figure that out because at first we were moving way too fast. We were acting like we were on vacation, and you're not on vacation. And you're basically living at your normal life, trying to live a normal life at the same time you're moving through the planet. And it can be complicated, especially whenever you're in places where people don't speak the language you speak, and vice versa. So if we're not traveling, whenever I'm working on my books, or working on TV project or something like that, then I am usually up, have my coffee, and at my desk no later than 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm writing. And then in the afternoons, I'll usually try to take care of email, that sort of thing. We live in a great place down in Pittsburgh. We live downtown. So my wife and I usually take a break and go for a walk, get a bite to eat. Life is, we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. And I've finally really settled into, a routine. I guess my writing routine has been the same for probably, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
Sure. So let me ask you this. When you were in the third grade, was this your dream? Was this the life that you wanted? What was your dream?
God, yeah, that's an interesting question. No, my dream was to be a priest.
Okay.
Uh, I uh, I was a very religious kid. I'm not religious now, uh, but I was a very religious kid, and it wasn't my parents or anything. It was me, and I just got it in my head that that's what I was going to do. I guess because I became so religious. So, but I think the more interesting thing about it was I didn't want to just be a priest. I wanted to be the Pope. And kids used to actually joke with me about it and say, "Oh, Pope Chip the First." And and so I stuck with that. I stuck with it all the way through high school, where I went to a Jesuit high school that was specifically created by Cardinal Wright for students that wanted to become priests. But I think that my class was the only class that never actually generated a priest. Uh, but a lot of other priests were, came out of that school. It was a fabulous education, and I don't regret it at all. It was one of the best experiences of my life. But I learned a lot from the Jesuits, and one of the things I learned was don't be a priest.
So you're living this life that, like, especially if you were in front of a bunch of kids at career day, that would just be ogling at the places that you go to, National Geographic, all CNN, all of these different incarnations of your career. How did it start? How did this thirst for wander and wonder become your existence?
It's That's a great question. I don't know. From the time I was a kid, I always was interested in, I suppose, novelty or anything that was different, anything that was exotic or far away. And I always thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go there. I'm going to explore it. And, I wasn't born wealthy or anything. So I, once I got into college, I knew I wanted to write.
Yeah.
And, and truthfully, what I wanted to do was I wanted to write the great American novel. Unfortunately, at age 22, I didn't actually have one in my head. Uh, but I was determined to make a living writing. So that's how I got into journalism. And I became, just a newspaper writer was my first job out of the gate. And then I got into magazines, and then that led to television news, and that led to CNN, and then that led to documentaries, and the documentaries led to, nonfiction books, and then finally I got my first novel done, and that's kind of how it went. And I just always enjoyed anything that was interesting. So one of the things that journalism gave me was a way to journalism. It was great because everything you do as a journalist is about learning something new.
Yeah.
You meet new people, you meet new stories, you go to new places, so everything was novel, and that was perfect. And then when I got into documentaries, it was even better because I could really dig in, and explore something. But I still had to kind of explore what the projects were that I was working on. They were really fascinating, and they took me to, six continents, and I loved it. And but the books, once I got into my third book, enabled me to write what I wanted to write,
Yeah.
and try to figure out the problems that I was grappling with, and that I thought other people might find interesting. And so that was really great. But what was really great was writing the novel, or writing and some of the screenplays that I wrote, um, because you have complete freedom.
Yeah.
It's just you and your brain, and you're creating your own interesting place to be. And if you're lucky enough to have been to other interesting places, there's a lot rattling around in your head that's interesting. I
Isn't that
like
the
being in my head.
Yeah, right. No, and isn't that the ultimate pinnacle of having, because I always think that journalism's like tattoos. People that really like them, you just don't stop. You want to get more. And journalism is one of those things that will never get out of your bloodstream. But I would think the pinnacle of it is to have that pure freedom, to be you, to do what you want to do without editors or anybody saying, nah, maybe not. You get to be the editor and creator. Isn't that kind of the pinnacle of where you want to be?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think that it's always good for a writer to have a great editor,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's different than editing for magazines. Like, it would really frustrate me sometimes when I was writing for The Economist, or for uh, Scientific American, or even the National Geographic. You're constrained because they have an audience, and
Yeah.
so your writing has to fit that audience. And it didn't always fit the way I wanted to write something, and that's okay. It was the way it was, and I would work with the editors, and we'd get it all straightened out. But um, with the books, especially the ones that I was able to write, uh, that I wanted to write, I it was just it was great, but it was also great to have a good, strong editor in there to sort of bounce ideas off of you and say, well, maybe you don't need that passage there, or maybe you want to move it here. And it's always good to have that objective smart, objective opinion. I've had a couple of editors that weren't as smart as I wish they were.
Yeah, right. I get it. So, who's been that hero for you? Who's been that inspiration for you in your career?
Well, I mean, there are all kinds of writers that I've read that have had a huge effect on me. I mean, Ernest Hemingway or uh, Raymond Chandler's stuff. Uh, I, the classics, from the 20s. All of those writers are writers that I read as I was coming up through college, uh, and screenplays. Huh, there's so many. I would just study every screenplay I could get my hands on when I started writing them in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's essentially what I would do with anything. I mean, by my calculation, I think I have 7 careers, not 7 different jobs. God knows how many jobs I've had.
Yeah.
But with each one, that was the other thing, to go back to what your question about what would get you going, would get me going about things, was I was too stupid to realize how hard it was to do some of the things that I wanted to do. But then I'd try to do them, and I would get into them and somehow stumble my way through it, and more or less succeed.
Yeah.
So like with screenplays, I just was like, well, I have no idea how to write a screenplay, but I'm going to write a screenplay. And then I just read lots of screenplays and watched lots of movies. And I was a big movie buff anyhow as a kid. So, that's kind of how I approach things. And the same thing with documentaries. And I was lucky enough to work with just great people. I worked with Michael Keaton on a couple movie projects, and of course the novels. I've been reading novels as fast as I could get them read. All my life. So that just was in my brain, I guess.
Yeah.
I
So let
just
me ask you that.
kind of know what to write.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, as somebody that's been all over the globe and have seen so many places, what is one of the most unexpectedly magical places on this planet that you've been to? You just didn't expect it to be like that.
I wasn't sure what I was going to see when I got to Patagonia,
Yeah.
and it blew my mind. I mean, some of the mountains there, some of the locations there, just so stunning, so majestic, you know, so different from anything that I'd seen. Plus, there were not very many people there, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're going to the Alps or something where there's people all over the place. So that was one of them. But and my wife would certainly agree with me. Antarctica is literally like another planet. Uh, and when you go there, I mean, what's interesting is you leave a place like Ushuaia, which is the very tip of South America, to take a ship, to Antarctica. And so you're going through the, God, what am I blanking out? The straits. Well, anyhow, the straits there between Antarctica and South America. And uh, those are 3 oceans that come together.
Yeah.
So it's the roughest water in the world. And we were lucky. We were there in the summertime, so it wasn't as bad as it could get. But you'd had 24-foot swells, so you were definitely, for 2 days, you were rolling around a lot,
Yeah.
doors swinging all over the place, people stumbling around and everything. And then I remember it was like that, and we went to sleep, and we knew we would be coming into the isthmus there. And I woke up in the morning, and it was dead quiet. Nothing was rocking, nothing was moving. And I jumped up and I looked out the porthole, and all you could see were huge icebergs just drifting by, and enormous mountains with these peaks, and everything was perfectly white. Everything was white or wet, you know, and it's, just raises the cackles on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm standing here looking at this,
Yeah.
and then going out into it, and being with the whales, where they're right there. And I'm watching these huge icebergs, or big as mountains, just bobbing by you. That, and or the penguins, thousands and thousands of penguins
Wow.
everywhere. It was it's really something.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. So I'm curious of all of these things that you've accomplished and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the novel. I really like the novel I wrote. Doppelgänger, just it came out a couple months ago.
Yeah.
It's doing well. It's getting great reviews. Um, it kind of is a sequel to some of the what I call literary science books that I wrote, which were about human behavior and evolution, but also about advanced technology, some of the books. And so I was able in this story, once I created the premise of the story, to weave all of those ideas and all of that experience. A lot of it just came out of my head as I was writing it. But when I go back, and in fact, Scott Brick, who did the narration for Jurassic Park and Dune and a bunch of other great books, he's doing the audio version of the book
Yeah.
and he's narrating it. And so I've just been going through the book, to go through all of his audio to make sure we've cleaned up all the glitches and everything. And I went, oh yeah, I know where that idea came from, and I know, why are we, how. I mean, really, in a lot of ways, it explores what's the next level of human evolution.
Yeah.
And two of the books that I wrote are about how we evolved to become the creatures that we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're such odd animals. There's no animal like a human on the planet. No one's building rocket ships. No one's building satellites. No one's, you know, uh, building enormous cities with millions and millions of people in them and infrastructure, or no one. We were just in uh, Giza, you know, no animal built the pyramids, and you see those, and it just that was a place that just, I couldn't believe it when I walked up to it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that is big.
Yeah.
How did they do it?
Yeah.
And complicated inside, I mean,
Yeah.
just the whole civilization, is amazing.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Chip, everyone has this perception of you, family, friends, fans, colleagues, everyone that you know, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a great and frightening question.
It can be.
uh, um, wow. Well, one thing that I'm sure of is I'm intensely curious.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, I still maintain that kind of stupid attitude that anything is possible. So I'm an like industrial strength optimist.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe, as difficult. I mean, when I worked at CNN, all we did was talk about how the world was going to hell in a handbasket. But what I've really found as we're traveling the planet is people are good. We've never, ever had a problem with anybody. We've never been in trouble. Uh, we've never been harassed. Uh, and we go to some dodgy places, but we've been bailed out a lot of times, been lost, don't know how to get for a place. One place in Patagonia, our car just stopped in the middle of nowhere. And by pure luck, uh, a couple from France came by in a van, and it turned out they were engineers, and
Wow.
they fixed our car.
Wow.
and we got to the next place. So that's just one example of the places we've been bailed out. So I love that. I love all of that. Life is so good. And one of the reasons that one of my books and one I wrote with National Geographic is on longevity. And I was just fascinated. I thought, are we really at a point in human civilization where we can solve aging
Yeah.
and solve death, basically? And so I essentially went out to find, the people that I thought would best be able to solve that problem, and told their stories. Um, and one of the reasons I did that is because life is so good,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and that's the way I feel about it. So it's one of the things that I think motivates me. So it makes me very positive. I like people. I love novelty, and I want to be able to. I'd love to be able to live 1,000 years so that I can do all the things that I want to do. I can't imagine, ever saying, I'm done."
Right.
Some people do.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Well, I'm in that over 50 realm and I feel like that. I'm like, man, there's so much that I want to do. Like every day is this horn of plenty, man. Like I just can't
Hmm.
imagine any of that wander and wonder slowing down ever.
No, 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 no. Yeah, I mean, and don't let it. I mean,
No.
it happens. It happens to people. They start getting aches and pains. They start feeling old, and as soon as you start to allow yourself to think, even get in your head,
Yeah.
it will slow you down.
Yeah.
So yeah, by all means, go for it, keep it
Chug.
up. And
Keep
that's
going.
what I say to people. I mean, one of the inspirations for me was William Shatner.
Yeah.
I worked with Bill Shatner on, I guess it was my second book, and he was just great.
Yeah.
At first I thought, oh boy, what's he going to be like to work with? But we hit it off immediately, and he's now 93. He's about to turn 94 in March, and he just came back from Antarctica.
Yeah.
And he just keeps going.
Uh-huh.
Uh, there is nothing in him. I mean, he was 83 years old. He was doing a play,
Yeah.
a one man play, running all over the place.
Uh-huh.
And whenever we worked together, he was, close to 70, and he never asked anybody to carry his bags. He never, he was working out, so that was a big inspiration to me,
Yeah.
because it was like, oh, I see. You just don't stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't even occur to you that,
Right.
you might. I mean, I think recently he's starting to think about mortality, but I don't think he did,
Yeah.
for a long time.
For sure. Yeah, I had no idea he was that old. All I've ever seen him being is the Energizer Bunny. He is all over the
Right.
place, totally doing things, which is so refreshing to see at that age and
Right.
just his
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never stops. And he's an optimist, you know. So I after I spent time with him, I took a lot out of that. I thought, that's a great way to look at things,
Yeah,
and tried to absorb some of that.
absolutely. So Doppelganger is the latest book. If anyone wants to get a copy, they want to delve into your documentary, words, film, any of the good work that you've done, where's the best place for them to go?
It's actually two websites. So the one that you can find out pretty much anything about my writing and my books is chipwalter.com.
Yeah.
Just one word, chipwalter.com. And the other is about our travels. And there's an enormous amount of information because we've traveled now over half the planet. And I've done a decent job, I think. It's been hard, but I've done a decent job of kind of cataloging where we've been, and lots of pictures of places we've been. And that is vagabond-adventure.com. And that'll get you to those places. There's just a ton of information there. I write these dispatch. They're different approaches. Some of them are just kind of daily journal things, but then there's dispatches, which are deeper, longer pieces. And then, of course, I plan to write a series of books. I've pretty much decided can't cram it all into one book, so I'll have to break it down into multiple books. I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Chip, this has been an honor. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with all the travels, man.
Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.